Blood stained Amara Wilson's yellow dress as she collapsed outside Lakefield Public Library. 3 officers stood with smoking guns. Miles away, her father, Marcus, received the alert on his phone. They had no idea who they'd just shot or what hell was about to rain down. Before we dive deeper into this shocking story of injustice and a father's unstoppable quest for accountability, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If this story of racial injustice and a father's determination to fight a corrupt system resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to support more stories that expose the truth. Now, let's uncover how a brilliant deaf Black teenager's life was forever changed and how her father brought an entire police department to its knees. Amara Wilson was not your average 14-year-old girl. Born deaf, she navigated the world with extraordinary perception and intelligence that often left adults in awe. Her nimble fingers flew through American Sign Language with elegant precision, while her dark eyes missed nothing, reading lips with uncanny accuracy. The specialized tablet she carried everywhere served as her voice when needed, translating her typed words into speech with a clarity that matched her brilliant mind. Her father, Marcus Wilson, had made sure she had every tool possible to thrive in a world that wasn't designed for her. At 42, Marcus cut an impressive figure with his 6'1" frame maintained in peak physical condition, a habit from his 15 years as an NSA intelligence specialist. His closely cropped hair had started showing hints of gray at the temples, adding distinction to his stern yet handsome face. Since leaving the agency 5 years ago, he'd established himself as one of the most sought-after cybersecurity consultants in the Midwest. Though few clients knew the full extent of his capabilities, those specialized skills that had once protected national security interests now focused on a single priority: protecting his daughter. Marcus had raised Amara alone since his wife Lydia succumbed to an aggressive form of pancreatic cancer 5 years earlier. The loss had nearly destroyed him, but Amara had become his anchor to reality, his reason to push forward each day. Together, they had developed their own language beyond ASL, an intricate system of inside jokes, references, and traditions that bonded them against the world. Every Sunday morning featured their pancake ritual, where they competed to create the most outlandish shapes and flavors. Every achievement in Amara's life, no matter how small, was celebrated with their special handshake, ending with a finger snap and a wink that never failed to make her laugh. Their move to Lakefield, Michigan, had been strategically planned for Amara's education. The prestigious Lakefield Academy boasted the state's best program for deaf students, integrated within a rigorous academic curriculum that challenged Amara's hungry mind. What Marcus hadn't fully anticipated was how their presence would disturb the predominantly white, affluent suburb. Lakefield's polished exterior of liberal inclusivity barely masked an undercurrent of discomfort with the Black family in their midst. The Wilsons had purchased a modest but well-maintained colonial-style home on Maple Avenue, using a portion of Marcus's substantial savings. Within 24 hours of moving in, they experienced their first taste of Lakefield's true nature when neighbor Ella Whitfield called the police about suspicious individuals carrying boxes into the house, despite the moving truck clearly parked outside. The responding officers had been visibly surprised to discover Marcus's government credentials, backing down only after he calmly but firmly established his right to live there. Such incidents became a regular occurrence. At school, Amara faced subtle exclusions from study groups and social gatherings, with parents suddenly unavailable to drive their children for playdates at the Wilson home. Marcus was routinely pulled over while driving through Lakefield's winding suburban streets, often asked to explain where he was going in his own neighborhood. He kept meticulous records of each incident, his intelligence training automatically documenting patterns of behavior. What gave him hope was Amara's resilience. Rather than being defeated by the discrimination she faced for being both Black and deaf, she channeled her frustration into advocacy and technology. For the past 8 months, she had been developing a revolutionary app to help deaf people communicate with police during traffic stops or emergencies. The app would provide clear visual instructions and automate communications to prevent the dangerous misunderstandings that had led to tragedy for other deaf individuals. The morning of the incident had started like many others. Amara had bounded down the stairs, her curly hair pulled back in a bright yellow scrunchie that matched her favorite dress. She signed excitedly about meeting her coding mentor, Miss Chen, at the library to finalize the interface design for her app. Marcus remembered the pride that swelled in his chest as he watched her pack her tablet and notebooks with meticulous care. He'd offered to drive her, but at 14, Amara fiercely valued her independence. The library was just 3 blocks away, and she'd made the walk countless times before. Marcus had checked the weather forecast, confirmed she had her smartwatch with its emergency alert function, and hugged her goodbye as he watched her walk down the tree-lined street, yellow dress bright against the green summer foliage. He had no way of knowing it would be the last time he would see his daughter whole and unbroken. No way of knowing that Lakefield's poison ran deeper than individual prejudice, extending into the very institution meant to protect its citizens. No way of knowing that the skills he had developed to protect America would soon be repurposed for a much more personal war. Marcus Wilson had faced dangerous adversaries across multiple continents during his intelligence career, but nothing had prepared him for the battle that awaited when his daughter walked out the door that sunny Tuesday morning in June. A battle that would expose the rotting foundation of Lakefield's pristine facade and change the course of countless lives. The morning sun cast dappled shadows through the maple trees as Amara made her way along Lakefield's immaculate sidewalks. Her yellow dress brightened the already sunny day, and she hummed to herself, feeling the vibrations in her throat as she walked. Just a block from the library, she noticed Mrs. Petton, an elderly woman who often smiled at her from her garden, struggling with several grocery bags that had split at the bottom. Without hesitation, Amara rushed to help, kneeling to gather scattered oranges and canned goods that had rolled across the sidewalk. Mrs. Petton's weathered face crinkled with gratitude as Amara carefully placed the items into the remaining intact bags and offered to carry them to her door. The elderly woman patted Amara's hand in thanks, unaware that this simple act of kindness was being viewed through a dangerously distorted lens from down the street. Officer Raylan Mercer sat in his patrol car at the intersection, his attention immediately drawn to the interaction. Mercer, a 6-year veteran of the Lakefield Police Department with a growing file of civilian complaints, reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a suspicious black female teenager appears to be interfering with an elderly white woman at Maple and Elm. Possible theft in progress." The dispatcher's voice crackled back. "Any weapons visible?" Officer Mercer, "Negative, but subject is reaching into victims' bags, requesting backup." Within 90 seconds, Officers Blake Sullivan and Thomas Reynolds responded to the call, their patrol cars converging from opposite directions. Sullivan, a muscular former military police officer with a shaved head and perpetual scowl, had transferred to Lakefield after 2 excessive force complaints at his previous department had been quietly buried. Reynolds was newer to the force, 3 years in and still showing occasional flickers of the idealism that had led him to law enforcement, though those moments were becoming increasingly rare under Mercer and Sullivan's influence. By the time the officers converged, Amara had helped Mrs. Petton to her front porch and was walking away toward the library, completely unaware of the approaching threat. Her focus was on the meeting with Miss Chen and the exciting new features they would implement in her app. The library's brick facade came into view, its wide steps leading up to glass doors where she could see other patrons moving about inside. "Police, stop right there!" Mercer's voice boomed from behind her, but Amara continued walking, the world of sound closed to her. "I said stop." Mercer advanced rapidly, hand moving to his holster as Sullivan and Reynolds flanked out to create a triangulation pattern they drilled dozens of times. Inside the library, Emma Chen looked up from the reference desk, her attention caught by the sudden movement of officers outside the main entrance. Her stomach dropped as she recognized Amara approaching, unaware of the officers behind her with hands now on their weapons. Emma rushed toward the doors, already knowing with sick certainty what was unfolding. Outside, Amara reached into her bag for her tablet, wanting to have it ready to show Miss Chen her latest coding progress. "She's reaching!" Sullivan's voice cut through the morning air, though no weapon was visible to any bystander. The next sequence of events happened in horrifying slow motion for witnesses, yet too fast for anyone to intervene. 3 officers drew their weapons simultaneously, shouting commands that never reached Amara's deaf ears, as she turned, tablet partially withdrawn from her bag. The first shot came from Mercer's weapon, striking her left shoulder and spinning her partially around. The second and third shots followed almost. Mercer looked away first already, sensing that the routine cover-up procedures would not suffice for this particular incident. The doors closed, and as the ambulance pulled away, Marcus held his daughter's limp hand, making her a silent promise that reverberated with the force of an oath. The men who had done this would face justice no matter what it took. The system that protected them would be exposed, and Lakefield would never be the same again. The emergency entrance of Lakefield Memorial Hospital burst open as paramedics wheeled Amara's stretcher through with practiced urgency. 14-year-old female, multiple GSWs to shoulder, thigh, and lower back, BP 70/40 and dropping, pulse weak and thready, approximately 20 minutes since injury. The trauma team swarmed around her immediately, a choreographed rush of medical professionals in scrubs and gloves. Dr. Sarah Reynolds, the lead trauma surgeon, barked rapid assessment questions while performing her initial examination. "Type and cross for 4 units, get a trauma series, and prep 2 immediately." Marcus attempted to follow as they wheeled Amara toward the elevator, only to find his path blocked by 2 Lakefield police officers who had arrived separately. "Sir, you need to remain in the waiting area while we secure the scene," the taller officer stated, hand resting meaningfully on his holster. Marcus's voice emerged with dangerous calm, each word precisely measured. "That is my 14-year-old daughter. She is deaf. She has been shot by your colleagues. I am going with her." He reached into his pocket, slowly producing his federal consultant credentials. "I suggest you radio Chief Blackwell and tell him Marcus Wilson is here. Then get out of my way." The officer's eyes widened slightly at the credentials before he stepped aside, immediately reaching for his radio. Marcus caught the elevator just as the doors were closing, positioning himself at Amara's head where he wouldn't interfere with the medical team's work. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, recognition and fear mixing in her gaze. Marcus signed, "I love you," where she could see it, and her fingers twitched in response before unconsciousness reclaimed her. Within 30 minutes, the hospital's atmosphere had transformed dramatically. The waiting room filled with uniformed officers ostensibly there to secure the scene, but clearly establishing a show of force. Meanwhile, word had spread through Lakefield's Black community, and residents began arriving in growing numbers, their silent presence creating a palpable tension in the antiseptic air. Police Chief Warren Blackwell arrived with the swagger of a man unaccustomed to having his authority questioned. Tall and imposing, with cold blue eyes and silver hair that enhanced his authoritative presence, Blackwell had built the Lakefield Police Department in his image over 15 years as chief. He immediately huddled with officers Mercer, Sullivan, and Reynolds in a private consultation room, doors closed against prying eyes and ears. Within the sterile brightness of the operating room, Dr. Reynolds worked with intense focus to repair the damage caused by 3 bullets. The shoulder wound had shattered Amara's clavicle, but missed major vessels. The thigh shot had thankfully bypassed the femoral artery by centimeters. It was the lower back injury causing the greatest concern, with the bullet lodged dangerously close to her spine. Outside, in the surgical waiting area, Marcus sat perfectly still, his exterior calm belying the precise analytical processes occurring behind his eyes. Years of intelligence training had taught him to use crisis moments for planning rather than panic. He was already mapping personnel, identifying potential allies and threats, calculating angles of approach for what he knew would become the most important operation of his life. His solitary vigil was interrupted by the arrival of a tall black man in his 50s, dressed in an impeccable suit despite the late hour. "Mr. Wilson, I'm James Morrison, civil rights attorney. I was at the courthouse when I heard about what happened. I came as soon as I could." Marcus assessed the man carefully before responding. "How did you know to find me here?" "I've been monitoring Lakeville PD for 2 years now. What happened to your daughter fits a pattern I've been documenting." Morrison lowered his voice. "The crowd gathering downstairs isn't coincidental. The black community here has been systematically targeted by Blackwell's department. Your daughter might finally be the case that breaks this wide open." Marcus's expression revealed nothing, but his next words carried quiet intensity. "I don't need a case, Mr. Morrison. I need accountability, and I will have it, with or without the legal system's cooperation." Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Reynolds' arrival, still in surgical scrubs with a surgical cap covering her auburn hair. Her expression was guarded, but not defeated, a good sign Marcus immediately registered. "Mr. Wilson, Amara is stable. We've removed 2 bullets and repaired the damage to her shoulder and thigh. The 3rd bullet is lodged near her L3 vertebrae. I've left it for now as attempting removal poses greater risk than benefit. She's being transferred to ICU." She hesitated before adding, "There may be some nerve damage affecting her left leg, but it's too soon to know the extent. The next 24 hours are critical." Marcus absorbed this information with a single nod. "When can I see her?" "She'll be in recovery for another hour, then ICU. I'll make sure you have access." Dr. Reynolds glanced around before continuing more quietly. "Mr. Wilson, I should inform you that police have requested to station an officer in her room and to be notified when she's conscious for questioning." Marcus's eyes hardened. "My daughter is a minor. She is deaf. She will not be questioned without me present and without an interpreter of my choosing." Dr. Reynolds nodded. "I understand. As her physician, I can restrict access based on medical necessity for the next 12 hours, at least." For the first time, a ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips. "Thank you, doctor." As Dr. Reynolds departed, Morrison leaned closer. "Blackwell will be building his narrative already. Those officers will have aligned their stories before they gave their first official statements. I'm counting on it. Fabricated stories have inconsistencies. Inconsistencies create leverage." 3 hours later, Marcus sat beside Amara's ICU bed, her small form dwarfed by medical equipment. Despite the hospital staff's objections, he had positioned himself so that he would be the first person she saw upon waking. Outside the door, an increasingly tense standoff was developing between hospital security, police officers demanding access, and community members who had established an impromptu vigil in the hallway. When Chief Blackwell himself appeared, demanding to speak with Marcus, the confrontation that followed revealed the first public glimpse of what Lakefield's most powerful man was truly facing. "Mr. Wilson," Blackwell began with practiced authority, "I understand this is a difficult time, but we need to conduct our investigation. One of my officers will need to take your daughter's statement once she's conscious." Marcus stood, his height matching Blackwell's as he stepped closer. "Chief Blackwell, Warren James Blackwell, appointed 15 years ago after serving in Detroit's 8th Precinct. 2 excessive force complaints buried during your first year here. Known associate of 3 prominent donors with ties to white nationalist organizations. That Warren Blackwell." The chief's face remained impassive, but a muscle twitched almost imperceptibly at his jaw. "I see you've done some homework, but if you think intimidation tactics will work on me, you're mistaken. This was an unfortunate incident resulting from your daughter's failure to comply with officer commands." Marcus's voice dropped to a register that sent chills through those witnessing the exchange. "My daughter is deaf. She was reaching for her communication device, and this incident was the inevitable result of your department's documented pattern of racial targeting, a pattern I will expose down to its roots, unless you walk away now. Blackwell's confidence wavered visibly for just a moment before he reasserted his practiced authority. Threats against the police officer are taken very seriously in my jurisdiction, Mr. Wilson. This isn't a threat, Chief. It's a promise, and your jurisdiction is about to change dramatically. As if on cue, James Morrison approached with several other attorneys and community leaders. Chief Blackwell, I filed an emergency injunction preventing any officer involved in this shooting from having contact with the victim. I've also submitted formal requests for all body camera footage, radio transmissions, and witness statements to be preserved. Blackwell retreated, but not before issuing a final warning glance at Marcus. Later that evening, as Marcus reviewed hospital security camera feeds on his phone using access calls he had quietly obtained, he noticed a 15-minute gap in the footage covering the hallway outside Amara's room. Intelligence training immediately recognized the signature of deliberate tampering. He began methodically documenting everything, creating encrypted backups that uploaded automatically to secure servers only he could access. By morning, local media had picked up the story, though the narrative being pushed carried the clear fingerprints of police influence. Teen injured in police miscommunication, read one headline, while another referred to the shooting as an unfortunate incident during routine stop. Marcus watched these developments with the calculated patience of a man setting up pieces on a chessboard, knowing that the opening moves were merely preparation for the devastating middle game to come. Have you ever wondered how far you would go to protect your child from a system designed to crush them? Type number 1 in the comments if you believe Marcus is justified in using every skill at his disposal to fight for justice. Or number 2, if you think he should trust the legal system to handle things properly. Our story takes an even more intense turn as Marcus begins gathering evidence that will shake Lakefield to its core. What would you do if you discovered the people meant to protect your community were actually targeting it? Like this video if you want to see corrupt systems exposed, and subscribe to follow Marcus's fight for justice. The evidence Marcus begins uncovering next will leave you stunned, but the real question is, how deep does the